Hey, what's up, buddy?
That was about the girls?
Yeah, if you want to, you're on. You're on the line. It's your topic. Viewer call in Monday.
All right, well, I mean,
Do you want me to?
I'm pretty curious as
Or go ahead.
I'm pretty curious as to why your opinion on trans issues seems to have shifted lately.
Okay, so fuck me, dude. Okay, let me say some things. Okay, first of all, I'm pretty chill with most people as long as they don't fuck with other people. Okay, I have no problem
Absolutely.
with gay people because it's consensual sex or whatever. I'm not a big fan of like raping children, so I think the pedophiles should seek to change their shit. For the most part, I'm fine with transgendered people. I think it gets a little bit weird. I'm not really comfortable for the big push to get like children to start to embrace it. Like I feel like that's a little bit weird when you're talking about taking like T blockers and shit for like kids that are like 10 years old. But I guess like the problem that I have right now with transgenderedness is I'm having like these really big ideological gaps that I'm just not understanding. And when I spent a little while a few days ago reading into the different classifications, how transgenderism went from being just body dysmorphia and the DSM-5 from the DSM-4, and a lot of it looks like it's starting to become a little bit too political, and it makes me wonder some things. So I guess like here's my I'm making a huge assumption just in your voice. I'm sorry if this is really bad, but are you a trans person, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just I'll ask a few questions. I'll be very blunt. I won't waste anybody's time.
Absolutely.
So okay, so if you're not comfortable answering, you can go ahead and tell me to fuck off or whatever. It's fine. Are you?
I mean, I'm really interested in just having a conversation about this.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not arguing. I'm just curious.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What is So are you what male to female, female to male? How does that?
I'm MTF. I've been like basically living stealth, meaning people don't know I'm trans for the past 2 years now.
Gotcha. Oh, so like you're is it offensive to say passing or is it
no, it's not offensive.
Okay, so are you so you're passing as a female, right? Okay. So I get like here's my question. It's something that I really don't understand. I'm sorry if these sound like they come from a place of extreme ignorance, but over the past years, I have journeyed very far left of where I used to be. Okay, so I used to be very right leaning. Okay, I used to be very conservative and even a lot of my social beliefs. But now, as a result of life experiences and learning and doing things, I'm starting to feel more and more when I get into arguments of gender equality, I'm starting to feel like a lot of things in our lives are social constructs. They're things that exist because society has told us they exist. A lot of the nature shit that we grew up with is more or less completely overridden by societal shit, right? Like we're monogamous is very fucking strange. We're fat, which is very strange. Out of shape or learning things in school for 8 hours a day, sitting down a lot. A lot of these things are very unnatural. Things that we weren't evolved to do, but we do them because society tells us to do them, right? So a lot of things are nurture versus nature, right? So when I think of like, what does it mean to be a man versus what does it mean to be a woman, right? These are things that I've thought about a lot recently. Like for the most part, what does it mean to be a woman in most ways is just kind of shit. When you think of like, what is a man, right? A man is somebody who they're a provider, they're a protector, they're strong, they're independent, they're confident, they're leaders, they're warriors, they're like all these awesome, like when you think like, what does it mean to be a man? Like fucking everything that's awesome is a man. Like we fucking get to do everything. Like that's sick as fuck. We're smart. We're the best at everything. Like that's cool. And you think about what it means to be a woman, like you take care of kids and you're pretty and you're kind of frail and like, it just seems kind of shit, right? So when I think of things, but I know of women that are intelligent. I know of women that are strong, that kind of buck the societal trends and do what they want. And I think that's really cool. And I like the push towards that of kind of equalizing the unequal bullshit on both sides. But then when I look at something like transgendered people, it's very hard for me to plug that in to the current like paradigm that I view sexuality out of, because it kind of seems like, so here's my impression. You said you're male to female. So does that mean that at one point in your life, you were like, I'm into a lot of feminine things. I kind of see myself as more of a woman. Doesn't that kind of reinforce every traditional like societal gender role, or how does it not?
So I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding, and that makes a lot of sense to me. The reason I wanted to talk to you so much is because I think like just the level of autism from every side of this trans discussion is just staggering.
I understand a lot about these issues, more so than anybody else in the gaming community, I promise, and 99.99% of my chat. Please do not even bother talking about the stupid autistic fucking shit my chat says, okay? I promise I'm not gonna... Okay, yeah. I promise I'm not parroting any crazy shit. I have a lot of transgender friends, a few that aren't crazy. I understand the difference, or the purported difference between gender and sex, and the difference between your sex organs and identifying as a certain gender and whatnot. But you see my problem is like bridging the gap between, the genders can more or less do whatever they want, but why don't transgenders reinforce gender norms, right, is my...
So, the interesting thing, I think, is in my experience, a lot of trans people end up transitioning and then bucking gender norms from the other side. And as I understand it personally, so I sent you earlier on Twitter some brain scan research, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Okay.
I'll send it to you again on Skype. But basically, some research was done on the brains of trans people, and it showed that trans women have essentially brains that much more closely resemble the brains of cis women than of cis men.
Sure.
And vice versa.
And I've heard that before. I've heard that. However... So now, let's say that I come at you as a 35-year-old beer belly, white trash American, and I'm like, why do all these women want to get into these STEM fields? If you look at the brains, they're totally different, right? Why do women want to get, when their brains just aren't wired for it? They don't like that thinking, right? So how do you argue with something like that when you've essentially just said, I was born as a female, or I know that you're not, but like, I'm born as a female, but I feel like I need to be a man. Well, didn't you just kind of like totally affirm what that white trash, super sexist person said, that you have to be a man in order to excel at this because it's all about the brains?
Well, the funny thing is, so I've actually looked into both sides of this brain scan argument, and a lot of the articles that you'll find that are against it say, well, the differences between brains are pretty minimal and don't really have a lot of practical effect on a person's life.
Sure.
So the way I read that basically is the male brain, female body, female brain, male body, clash, you might say, has a lot more to do with a person's relationship to their own body than their social role. So transgender dysphoria, as I would understand it, is a lot more about essentially that relationship.
I guess I kind of understand. I just don't understand what makes you identify as not being that gender besides society is my question. So I guess to ask you personally, I understand anecdotes are pretty much worthless, but just to ask you personally, you are, you said male to female. Why couldn't you just be, and again, this might sound incredibly offensive, why can't you just be an effeminate man with interests in things that are traditionally things that women are interested in? Why do you have to be a woman? Why do you feel that way?
Well, I think it's because of the social roles that we have. I mean, I could envision a society in which I could probably be happy living under the definition of man, but
it's not this one.
It's not this one. Okay, absolutely not.
So
if people saw me as a man, that would substantially fuck me over all the time.
Sure. So what you just said there, I totally understand that. But then in that case, isn't then the correct push for things like therapy and acceptance of yourself rather than transitioning completely into another gender? I guess, like, if I try to compare it with any other kind of, I hate to use the term psychotic, something.
Don't worry too much about offending me.
Yeah, sure.
I understand you're a reasonable person.
Sure. Okay. So if you look at any other kind of mental delusion, I'm not trying to say that, but like any kind of other fucked up shit, right? Let's say somebody has an eating disorder and they want to be really fucking fat all the time, and they eat and they eat and they eat. If you were to go to a doctor, the solution wouldn't be, we're going to equip you with an awesome wheelchair, we're going to give you a sick ass huge fucking bed and an assistant so that you can eat yourself into being 500 pounds. The solution would actually be, well, no, we're going to talk, we're going to do a lot of therapy, we're going to get to the root of your problems, and we're going to help you identify them, and we're going to make it so that you're comfortable being a thin person, right? Or any other kind of like mental issues. The goal is usually, or for like pedophilia, right? For pedophilia, the goal is, let's work through this, let's figure out what the problem is, let's see if you can suppress these urges because you're not choosing to be a pedophile, right? So let's figure this out and we can work through it to make you somebody that's not having these issues that are fucking your life over, right? But why is it that in looking at transgendered people just because we have the technology. Like, if we had the technology to create lifelike children robots, would it be okay to be a pedophile because we could build them little, like, 6-year-old, robot fuck toys? Like, I don't think we would, right? Just because on an emotional level it feels wrong. But it seems like for transgendered people, it's become acceptable to say, like, okay, well, even though we don't necessarily maybe don't believe in these gender roles anymore, like, well, we're still going to enforce that by giving you surgery to be the gender role that you feel like you match, right? Do you see where I'm kind of coming from?
I do see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
It's an objection I've heard a lot of people raise.
Uh-huh.
In general, I think that the logic applies more if you're talking about something less hardwired, because I'm seeing transgenderism as a fundamental result of the structure of a person's brain. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't therapy that away, right?
Well, but no, I mean, I think you maybe could, though, because like you just said, the exact structure of a person's brain is probably a lot more subject to the environment it's in rather than the actual biological, right? Like, or I think, like, to put this a different way, I think that we could probably both agree that if you were born in a vacuum, and like you were just born in the wilderness as however you feel, that you could be the way that you are, and you wouldn't feel like you needed to change genders because you wouldn't have a preconceived notion of what it means to be a gender, right? That's something that you get from society, right?
Yeah, this is a really complex issue.
I know. I agree. I definitely agree. Sure.
I do think trans people, even in a vacuum, would still have issues with their bodies. I'm pretty confident of that.
Do you really think so?
I do. I really do. I mean, like, so are you familiar with the case of the one dude whose circumcision was botched?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, but the only thing that I would need to read into that more, but the only thing that bothered me there was, like, that dude's life was already, to summarize for chat, this was the guy who had a fucked up circumcision, so the doctor thought that he could just trans him up into create him into a female, more or less, by doing the necessary surgery, and they would raise him as a female, but the guy ended up having severe body dysmorphia for his entire life, and I think he killed himself, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, he committed suicide, and that was supposed to be a strong argument for the idea that our gender is hardwired into our brain and that it's not necessarily as socially influenced as some people would have you believe, right? Mm-hmm. Sure.
I mean, basically, we get into a lot of theoretical discussions when we talk about this. Mm-hmm. And of course, this is personally anecdotal, but, like, as I understand it, because of the society is structured the way that it is, mm-hmm. and our gender roles are as they are, transitioning is the solution that works to make trans people happy. That definitely speaks to my experience, at least.
Yeah, I mean...
So maybe there is a therapy solution,
sure.
but...
Okay, yeah, I mean, I guess... Like, that sounds like a reasonable position. Like, what the position that you've given me is very defensible. So I think that you would agree that maybe it's not the best overall for society to kind of reinforce gender roles via transitioning, but for transgendered people who have to live in this world day to day, transitioning is a million times easier than trying to forge your way through the world feeling like a woman in every sense of the word, societally, even though you're a man. Right? I think you would kind of agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, I guess.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I guess I'm starting to speak out more against this now, one of the things that really bothers me is on the LGBT side of things, the T community is very fucking militant. Like, holy shit, right? Would you agree with that? Or at least the vocal one on the internet is insanely militant. And it bothers me to see other mental things. Like, I guess, like, I maybe I'm the stereotypical Redditor. When I look at something like pedophilia, it really bothers me to see how hardcore, and if you go to, like, I spend a lot of time reading, like, SRS and SRS discussion. I don't know if you've ever spent any time there. But, like, the stigmatism towards, like, pedophilia is fucking massive. But to me, that's like a mirror issue to homosexuality and transgendered people. The only difference being that homosexuals can be attracted to people of the same gender, and it's fine because it's all consensual. Transgender people can transition on their own, and that's fine. It's all consensual. Pedophiles are kind of fucked because the attraction that they have happens to be to a party that can't consent, right? But that's already past the fact that it's not like they're choosing a party that can't consent. 100%. And this is part of the reading that I did a couple weeks ago when I was trying to read up on, like, because I know a lot of people get hung up on, like, what's a paraphilia and what's a sexual orientation, all of that. And all of those definitions seem to be, like, super fast and loose. And the difference between the DSM-4 and 5, like, a lot of it seems a little bit political, like when they removed, like, the transgenderism from being a disorder and from homosexuality from being a paraphilia to something, like, and the definitions for everything seem, like, really bizarre. And, like, I think the definition for paraphilia, the reason why homosexuality was removed from a paraphilia was because it had always existed, and that was the reasoning for it. But, like, I mean, I'm sure that there have always been people that wanted to fuck chairs, but you would still call that a paraphilia, right? That's not a good argument. Like, so yeah, like, I don't know, like, all of that shit, just how, like, militant the T community is, like, really bothers me. The huge shunning of, like, any type of pedophile is automatically a child molester, and there's no sympathy. And just because you're born being attracted to that, you're a disgusting piece of shit, even though we're accepting of gay people or transgender people. Like, that kind of stuff really bothers me. And then the trans push for getting children involved in taking, like, medication really bothers me as well. Like, as complicated as being a teenager is, when you add into that the possibility of considering a different gender on top of that, like, that's got to be like 50 million times more clusterfucky, you know?
I mean, I don't want to speak too much about the children's stuff. In general, when I read into those cases, they seem pretty fine to me. Maybe I've been reading different things than you, but it usually seems like it's the child's choice. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be too opposed to having some kind of age limit in there.
Sure. I guess, like, but what does a child know? You know, like, I mean, I was a kid once, like, what, like, fuck, dude, I'm trying to imagine, like, if I had the opportunity to make, like, a life-changing decision like that when I'm, like, 12 or 13, like, holy fuck, dude, like, there's no way I could do it. Like, I was a fucking idiot at 18, dude. I was an idiot at 21. I can't imagine choosing at age 10 to undergo, like, such a dramatic change in body composition that, like, I don't know, that seems, like, really scared.
I mean, if in that case, if it does go wrong, all you really end up having to do is transition back.
Well, but you're assuming that you don't have any kind of, like, permanent psychological damage done from, like, the already traumatizing years of being a teenager, right?
I mean, I guess.
You don't agree with that?
I guess I'm sympathetic to the point because, like, if I had, thinking back on my own life, if I had been able to realize what I needed to do personally sooner, I know I would have a lot less damage.
Yeah, sure, because transitioning is easier if you can block before puberty and whatnot starts. Sure.
I think you kind of just end up with a risk versus reward calculus here. Like, how many people would be fucked up by it and how many people would be saved by it?
Sure.
So it's a pretty complex question, too. I mean, that's the main thing that drives me crazy here. And so let's get off this topic anyway.
Yeah, sure.
The queer community as a whole and the trans community, I'm with you on the pedophile stuff. Like, I've had friends who were attracted to children and absolutely fuck up over it. And I definitely think there's a lack of sympathy there. And I guess I just don't see how that makes you want to be more critical of trans people.
On the the
pedophiles issue.
Oh, no. I mean, it's not less sympathetic. It's just an annoyance that I have. Is like, it seems like a lot of the trans community is, like, super militant. I guess, like, I say trans, but a lot of, I hate to say this, but, like, social justice warriors have a huge problem with groups that they consider protected groups are, like, immune from all forms of criticism. That really bothers me. So, like, people like the Zoe Quinn person, who is just an absolute piece of shit. People like the, who was that crazy fucking, she's another transgendered lady. She made that tweet, like, I got $200,000 from my parents and I learned more from that than I ever could going to college. This crazy fucking, do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't know who that is.
Fuck, someone in chat said, I always forget her name. But, like, anytime you try to criticize these people because they're part of, like, a certain, like, group, whether it's, Brianna Wu, do you know her?
No.
Okay, yeah, she crazy, really wealthy person, but she was transgendered, but just said a lot of crazy fucking stupid shit. But anytime you, like, criticize it, like, people are like, dude, she's transgendered. Like, why are you so transphobic? It's like, dog, like, she's fucking crazy. Like, what do you want me to say? I guess, like, the reason why I guess I got a little bit more turned on this over the past couple of months is because I saw what happened to, do you watch speedrunners at all? Are you familiar with Cosmo or Narcissa?
No.
Okay. So Cosmo Wright used to be, I don't remember. It was a Zelda stream runner. Or a Zelda speedrunner. Do you know what speedrunning is?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know which Zelda it was. It might have been Ocarina of Time. I'm not sure. But they speedran Zelda games. He painted his fingernails, but for the most part, he seemed like a normally well-adjusted person on stream. I guess maybe like I don't want to use autistic, like lightly, but like maybe he had like a little bit of like antisocial tendencies going on. But Cosmo was. Yeah, that was Cosmo. And then at one point, I don't know what happened, Cosmo decided that he was going to transition into being a female. I don't mean this like he just made it one day. Maybe this is something that he or she, I guess now, has wrestled with for a long time, but she decided that she'd be more comfortable being a female. She has a fuck ton of severe personality problems, like massive depression, extreme bipolar shit. She shares way too much information online. Very and these aren't things I'm saying like because I hate trans people, but just like, look, this is a person that's having like an emotional mental fucking breakdown, posting very
Absolutely.
creepy, very weird shit. Like, and it's really sad to watch. But I think the saddest thing is, and like, I don't even think she went to a therapist to do like the year's worth of counseling before transitioning. She ordered the drugs online to start the transitioning, right? So she didn't even talk to like a professional and shit. But the most frustrating part.
I actually did that too.
Oh, well, the most frustrating part of all of that is a person with severe mental problems, severe fuck ups in so many different ways. And this person is just getting like overwhelming support from a community that won't have them question anything. Like that kind of stuff, I guess, like rubbed me the wrong way. It made me feel like kind of bad. Like maybe this person is ultimately, maybe they are going to, if they were even super healthy mentally, going to be a transgender female, male to female. Maybe she wanted to be a female. Maybe that's like legitimate. And towards the end of therapy and everything, they would want to. But the fact that they have so many problems and so many like undiagnosed fuck ups of their mind, and like I'm not even saying this as like they tweeted something weird with them. I mean like crazy narcissist, like just really bad. Like just trust me when I say like really fucking bad mental shit, posting blogs and shit online that are crazy. That it's really sad that they still find so much support just because they're transgendered, and the community will never like question one of their own, you know?
Yeah, I mean, my initial inclination is to say that the experience of being trans and being closeted and wrestling with that with oneself is an experience that absolutely causes mental problems in a lot of people.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'll definitely give you that maybe there's more nuance to the situation, but I just don't think that's the place of like a large internet community to question this person's gender identity, I guess. Like,
sure, but couldn't you on the flip side say that it's not their place then to encourage it as well?
What do you mean by encourage it, I guess?
I guess like congratulate somebody on getting drugs without any kind of approval, congratulate somebody on going through with something without taking care of any other issue first, congratulate and encourage somebody to continue pushing forward, like transitioning without any other kind of input from a professional. Or don't you feel like that's kind of equally irresponsible, or has the potential to be?
Yeah, I guess it has the potential to be. Something you said in particular does bother me a little bit. It's the without getting help for something else first. That seems to me to be something that a lot of cis people say when they
don't understand the issues that go along with having body dysmorphia.
Yeah,
so
kind of.
I feel like if you talked to a therapist that was well-versed in this, or a psychologist or whatever that was well-versed in this, like if you were to go in and you had depression and like bipolar, mania and shit, and you were to talk to a therapist and like a lot of your problems revolved around your body dysmorphia, obviously, right? Let's say that I'm not telling a person that has depression. So I understand exactly what you're saying. I really do. So you're saying that let's say that there's a person who weighs 400 pounds and they've got clinical fucking depression, and part of the reason they weigh so much is because they just lay around all day and they don't want to ever do anything, right? You wouldn't tell that person, dude, lose 200 pounds and then deal with your depression. Like, you got to lose the weight first. Like, dude, the reason why I'm fucking overweight is because I'm depressed all the time, right? I understand what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying. But I feel like it would be nice to have some kind of professional input first before just deciding I've got all these fucking problems. I'm pretty sure they all probably come from my body dysmorphia, so I'm just going to go ahead and self-medicate that, and hopefully everything else will fall into place, Yeah.
I think you have a point with the therapist issue, because I guess in my personal case, I did go to a therapist before I ordered hormones offline, off the internet. And the therapist was basically like, opened a book, read me the diagnosis. I said that sounded right. And he was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, the problem is...
It's a hard thing to diagnose.
Well, not only that, you would have to talk to somebody probably that, like, specializes in...
He did. And then because it was unsatisfying to my parents, they sent me to other psychologists who did the exact same thing.
Oh. Well, wait, then why didn't you ever get... If that was the case, then why didn't you ever get, like, a professional medical regimen of drugs or whatever? Why'd you have to order it online?
I have that now. I ordered online because my parents, they took me to multiple trans specializing psychologists who were all like, one meeting, okay, let's give you the hormones. And they just wouldn't accept that.
So your parents were shopping for a diagnosis.
Exactly.
Sure. Okay, so this isn't necessarily a problem then with getting help. It was a kind of a parent problem, right?
I mean, but at the same time, the scenario you're proposing, I guess I don't really know because I didn't come in with like a boatload of mental problems or anything. But what that would probably look like going to a therapist, as good as it would be to do that, would probably be something along the lines of what I experienced, maybe. I mean, I haven't heard of...
Well, but it sounds to me like what you got was good. You went to a therapist, they talked to you, and it sounds like, aside from the parent shit, but you said you didn't have like a boatload of other mental issues, right?
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
the
didn't.
narcissistic person has like, she has like extreme narcissism. Like sometimes she'll go on these like insane narcissistic rants about how she's better than literally everybody. She posts like, when I say crazy stuff online, I mean stuff that's way too personal, like that been posted out to everybody. And it's just very bizarre. The way that she's been conducting herself on stream, the destruction of her brand. She got her Twitch channel completely banned. Like and this was like a total, it wasn't like Cosmo, who she was before, or whatever. She didn't have these problems in the past, and like they quickly grew and grew and grew and grew. These all kind of showed up at like the same time. Although I guess she could have been hiding them before. I don't know.
What time was that?
When do you guys think Narcissa started? At about maybe a year ago, I think, is when they started to transition. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I like the idea of, I feel like transitioning is a really big deal. I feel like that is like a pretty big thing that will have an impact on the rest of your life, especially mentally, let alone, physiologically. So I feel like it would be nice to have some kind of input from a professional there, rather than going full like internet diagnoses and internet self-medication to do that,
Sure. Yeah, I think I can agree with that. I mean, people probably should go through the proper channels if they're intending to do like a serious long-term transition.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that other systems are in place that are healthy as well. Like they have supportive parents, or at least one supportive parent, and they're not getting fucked by like other, friends or, shit like that.
I mean, there's just a lot of shit that can go on, and being trans and closeted is a pretty fucked up experience. I've known a lot of people who come out, start taking hormones, and then in 6 months suddenly start making progress on their mental issues.
Sure.
So I have trouble initially condemning this person, but I guess I don't really know the case that well.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. In that case, it's kind of hard to talk about it, yeah.
And like, you do have a point with trans people and generally SJWs being really militant.
Yeah, it's not really a trans problem. It's an SJW problem where certain protected groups are immune from criticism, which really bothers me because I'm starting to identify more with those issues and supporting those issues. But it makes it really fucking hard when everybody else on my side is so crazy fucking militant and like immune to criticism about it. So you seem to be like a pretty chill person in terms of talking to these issues. I really do appreciate that because it's hard to find people on that side that don't go like insane about,
Oh, I mean, like, So there's this one YouTube channel that just started up. He goes by ContraPoints. He's this wonderful cross-dresser who talks about SJW issues or social justice issues overall. And I just didn't realize how much I needed somebody who is like able to break down these issues without using a boatload of buzzwords.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I hate like the Anita Sarkeesian's channel. And like, I think like philosophically, I probably agree with a lot of what she says, or at least some of what she says. But it's so fucking loaded that unless you already come in 100% drinking her brand of Kool-Aid, you're not going to buy into anything, right?
The worst part for me is that like most of the people who are like being militant online, I don't think they actually know what these concepts mean.
It's possible for a lot of people because a lot of them become literal buzzwords. I'll give Anita a little bit more credit just because I think she got a master's in like media communications or something like. Yeah,
she does know her shit.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Like I'll see people. I actually messaged I messaged the SRS discussion mods because I wanted to be unbanned because I am interested in that community and the ideas a lot more. And somebody got into an argument about something being a social construct, and it was something that like is natural to you, something that you grow up instinctually knowing being a social construct. And I corrected them. I was like, well, that's the opposite of a social construct. And then I got banned for being snarky or whatever. And I didn't even say it rudely. I was like, well, what you're saying is by definition the exact opposite of a social construct. If it's something that's intrinsic to you, and then I got banned for being too snarky, and I was just there to argue, I guess. So yeah, it seems like a lot of people will just throw around. It happens a lot if you view like the shit Reddit says subreddit. There's a lot of crazy like buzzwords that are just thrown around it. I don't think people understand all the underlying like ideology about it. For sure. Okay, well, hey, I appreciate the conversation. Do you have anything else you want to share with the stream or anything? Well, I mean, if you ever want to engage with someone who is pretty much an SJW and willing to chat with you, I would be happy to talk further. Gotcha. I hate capitalism. I think you like capitalism or something? I like it in theory. I don't like what we have now, but... Cool. Wait, why do you hate capitalism? That's a discussion that I right now, the things that I would be best at conjuring up, because that's a really, really big topic. And I've read a lot of things, and I'd like to prepare more if we'd talk more about that later. Sure. But right now, the thing that frustrates me the most is it's been called the second contradiction of capitalism, but basically capitalism demands constant growth, which demands taking resources from the planet, which are inherently finite. So the system is going to collapse really disastrously, inevitably. So is this more philosophically having to do with environmental structures or with like economic structures or systems, I should say? Well, I mean, I wouldn't call it philosophical. Like, well, because like, couldn't you argue that like you could make, if you look at something like Tesla, couldn't you argue that capitalism could push for growth in areas that conserve energy or find a way to renew energy, like in certain ways? Couldn't you make that as a counter argument? You could, but the manifestation of that right now doesn't seem to support that. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I mean, like in its current form, in the United States, we have something called crony capitalism. So like in its current form, and there are a lot of negative externalities that aren't accounted for in our current economic system. I don't disagree with that. So like I'm not really supportive of the economic system we have in the United States right now. But sure. Yeah, I kind of understand, I think. I don't know. From my understanding, it just seems like the system is inevitably going to fuck people over. It's unfortunate because I don't really know what an alternative is. I haven't really been sold on communism or socialism or anything. Sure. I guess some limited forms of socialism maybe, but... I don't know. Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate the conversation, buddy. Yeah. All right, have fun. Good luck. See ya. Okay. Wow, okay, well, we knocked our trans issues out of the park, guys. We fucking did it. What else? We got our racial diversity things out.
Destiny, I see you've had a few non-stupid callers on the show. Ratings are down 40 points and Trump is running away with the election. Please bring the retards back on. Thanks.
I don't know who this guy is, but I don't think he would ever debate me, mates.
I like communism in theory too, teehee peppy.